Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about how to create an ecosystem tank. Let's get it. Creating an ecosystem tank is super easy to do as long as you follow these steps and tips. Not only that, but you can do lots of research online, as there's tons of videos on YouTube or even different forums that have different tips and tricks for their ecosystem tank. And you can also pull from documentaries or even going out and seeing your own wildlife, such as the rivers, canals, what makes them function, why are fish living there? How is it even possible if, this canal only gets water when it rains? You know, is there a lot of plants? You can be asking these questions and they can help you solve your ecosystem tank problems. This isn't a requirement, but you can definitely pick out different parts of the world, as this tank is kind of representing a South American type river, the Orinoco River, as it doesn't have all its native species, as I switched out the rummy nose tetras for neon tetras, as they were a little bit less pricey and easier on my budget to make this tank. But this tank has turned out really, really well, and I need to take out these endlers. They're not found in this part of the river that I'm trying to emulate, but I just needed an extra tank to put these guys in, and they tested the water, and everything's all good. So I think the first crucial step in making a tank is deciding whether or not you want it to be an aquascape, as in this super nice thing to look at, this super clean, it's really scaped well with rocks, with pebbles, driftwood, plants, all of that. Or are you going for more of just a normal, non kind of ecoscape? I call it an ecoscape because this is a relatively rough version of what you'd find in the part of the river that I'm trying to emulate, as there are driftwood, there's a little bit of rocks, not too much, there's lots of plant matter all around, as because it gets hot, there's a lot of sun in this part of the river, the Orinoco River, so all this dead matter that I put in, these are palm fronds from one of my trees in my front yard, and this is releasing all the tannins along with the driftwood, and it's kind of emulating that type of the river system for these fish. And I'm going for more of a natural style tank, as I'm not definitely not winning any awards with this aquascape, but I do love what I did with these two pieces of wood. Here, hold on, give me a second. Okay, so I grabbed my extra phone, to use as light, but underneath right here, there's a little cave. I'm really happy about that. If I do decide to take out the rams for other fish, they would definitely like that. And on this side right here, hold on. Oh, see, there's a tetra in here. But there's another cave. And I'm really happy with this. Honestly, the driftwood is probably my favorite part of the whole aquascape. I really love what I did, and especially with the plants they're going to be growing in, it's going to look really, really nice. So also, the difference between aquascapes and what I call ecoscapes, as in like a really, really basic version of an aquascape, is the mulm. I like to leave my mulm layer. I like to add that a little bit of nutrients for the plants. I didn't put any nutrient like root tabs or anything in the soil layer, so the plant's gotta get its nutrients from somewhere. So I'm leaving the fish poop, I'm leaving all the nasties in there, everything that breaks down, and allowing the plants to use it as nutrients. While an aquascape, they would take this out. It would be a lot more cleaner. It wouldn't feel, I don't want to say natural, because MD Tanks, I love that channel. He's one of my big inspirations in aquascaping and keeping it really simple. And his tanks have turned out really nice, where they are sort of, I don't want to say mucky or yucky, but they have that really natural feel to it. So once you decided what type of tank you're going to be doing, then it's going to be the substrate. And I definitely suggest using a nutrient substrate at the very bottom. Uh, I think like pond compost or pond soil works really well. Or if you don't have that in your budget, but you do have root tabs are definitely a good way to have these like more root feeding plants get nutrients. Like I said before, I don't have a nutrient layer. This is all play sand. I chose a little bit bigger grain. It's still super fine, to be honest, and it does mucky up the water when I do move it around, but I like the look of it, and to be honest, it really does fit the tank. And for some of these fish, like the ram, they do use the substrate to build little nests when they do start breeding. So when the fries become like a little bit free swimming, they'll build out little nests, you know, like let's say like this area, and they'll have the fry in a little hole in the sand that they dug out. So it provides like more of like natural breeding behaviors as well. But you can also use bigger grain sand, as sometimes if you get too small of a grain, it's too compact for the roots to move through as easily. So it gets a little bit harder for them, and they have to struggle a little bit more to get the nutrients. And unless you have a really nutrient rich substrate, they're gonna be wilted and dying. So as you can see here, these plants aren't doing the best. So I have to redo my vision with the plants and figure out what to do. So what I ended up doing for the time being was add these house plants. This is a golden pothos. Uh, I got them at Walmart. They were $6 for, you know, a small little thing. And what I did was I rinsed off the dirt that they came in. You have to rinse off the dirt really well. The dirt, it just does, it leaches nasties into the water, and you're just gonna have to do water changes. So I suggest you rinse off the dirt off the roots really well. But I broke it up into three. Here is, so here's my Endler breeding tank. I just cleaned it up a little bit, so the water's a little, yeah, there's a lot of particles in the water. But the other pothos is right here. So for $6, I got 3 decent size pothos. And what you do, or what I did, was I attached it to the driftwood. There's some zip ties, and I have the roots in the water. So you don't have to worry about root rot with these plants. They are really hardy, and they love aquarium water. And they just suck up all the nasties in the water, like the ammonia, the nitrite, and it just cleans the water and helps it a lot more. And I got the house plants because I started to see these plants not to do so well. So I was like, okay, I gotta help the tank somehow, because I don't want to be doing, you know, multiple water changes a week because the water's so nasty. So I got these house plants, and I have some floaters that are growing in. They're all in this corner. It's good. I ended up getting duckweed in the tank, but I also have dwarf water lettuce, which is going to provide lots of cover, and especially if these neon tetras start breeding. Oh my goodness, if they start breeding, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be following an instructional guide by Keeping Fish Simple, and going to be breeding them in tubs and recording the process, but this water is dang near perfect for them. I might need to lower the temperature a little bit, but I'm just probably going to remove the ram and put them in a different tank and allow these guys to breed, because there's a lot of just area for them, the eggs to get hidden, and especially the dwarf water lettuce growing in, there's going to be lots of just area for fry to grow. And honestly, I already feed kind of heavy already. These guys get fed a very, very small pinch every 2 hours, and I do, because this is a 10-gallon tank and there's lots of stuff in there, I do pretty much a 50% water change of about 5 gallons a week, just because I feed so much. And like, I mean, look, there's so many particles, but then again, there's so many Endler babies, like everywhere you look. See, that one was part of the first batch, and it's just, yeah, they're just everywhere. So these guys do get fed a little bit heavier. They do get fed twice a day, especially when I'm like, oh, you know what? I fed them in the morning, and it's towards the evening when the lights are about to turn off. So I'm like, you know what? Here's a little food, and whatever leftover food, the pleco. There we go. So whatever leftover food this pleco could definitely eat and pick up, because they're going to be a lot more active at night. But this pleco is super active, and I really, really do believe, there we go with that focus, I really do believe it's because these tetras, they're diddler fish, they're going to be swimming around. The next step after choosing the substrate is going to be choosing the hardscape. Hardscape is going to be rocks, driftwood, pebbles, just anything that you're going to be having in. And I think botanicals kind of fall into that, as they can be used as decoration. But it's to each to their own. And if you don't want this tea colored, that kind of brownish tint, don't add that much botanicals. The wood is probably going to release tannins. That's going to be getting that brown color. And if you don't want that, just have the driftwood in there. Don't add anything else. So there's going to be tons of different places that you could find hardscape. You can go to your local fish stores, pet stores. They have tons of different hardscape. And I mean, to be honest, you can go to one of the box chain stores and get hardscape. They're not much different from your any other fish store. But fish, on the other hand, I do believe that there is a difference, as most local fish stores quarantine and they get them from good sources, while box stores just bring them in, drop into the tank. They don't do water changes, and they kind of suck. So hardscape is definitely a good option to get at a box store. If you are running on a budget like me, you can definitely go on hikes and salvage different hardscape. I went on a good hike through the Santa Cruz Mountains with my girlfriend, and I got these 2 pieces of driftwood, and I let them dry out, and then I put them in my pond. So I got them waterlogged for the most part. So they're not, see right here, if they weren't waterlogged, they would be floating right now, and that would be a nightmare. And like, yeah, you do have to double check on what type of driftwood and what type of wood you're getting it from, because they can release nasties in the water that aren't too good for the fish, while some other wood would be really, really good. This wood, I'm not too sure. I'm not even following my own tip, but honestly, I believe this is like a, I don't know. It was in the Santa Cruz Mountains, but all this white stuff is normal for driftwood. It's just the biofilm that the wood produce while being in water. It'll go away if you have shrimp or snails or even a pleco. Oh, I thought I saw them over there. They would eat this up. They love that. So, or even like algae that starts to form on them, they'll eat it up. They kind of love that stuff. So after getting your hardscape, you're going to be choosing your filtration. Filtration is, in my opinion, a very key part in making a tank, as it can kind of make or break, of how much fish or what you could do in the tank. So so in this tank, I'm only going to be running one sponge filter. The second one is to start culturing, as I'm going to be making another tank soon, and I'm doing a build video for that. So I'm culturing this one, and the longer you have the second one, here's a tip, like a side note tip, the longer you have the second sponge filter culturing, it just makes the whole cycling process so much easier if you just put it into an established tank. And there's other ways, such as like I can like take it out and like squeeze all the bacteria into the tank. That's one way. But I'm just going to be taking out this extra sponge filter. But sponge filters are a super cheap and easy way to cycle a tank and filter a tank, as the sponges are going to be collecting bacteria and all the nasties, the particles in the water, and all they're done. See, I have mine hooked all the way up right here with a sponge, with a not a sponge, with a air filter on a sponge. This thing was really loud, so I just put a sponge on it. But so these are hooked up with an air filter, and it's pumping out really good filtration, as you can see. So the bubbles are moving the water. That's your water agitation. That's getting the oxygen in the water, and it's also filtering out all the particles. I don't have it with me, or I don't have one with me, but I'll pop one up on screen. But there's hang on the back filters that are really good. There's canister filters. If you're doing a really big tank, you could do a sump, or I mean, even for small tanks, I would suggest 30 gallons and up. In my opinion, I was thinking about running like a little small, little tote sump, doing like a DIY, really cheap sump for this 20 gallon, because it is my pride and joy right now. But in my head, I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna be getting a 30 gallon soon, I could do a sump for that. So I might do a little tote sump. But for this, but yeah, for this one, this one I'm not doing a sump for. But sumps are another great way of adding extra water quantity, as you know, it's an entirely different water basin. I wouldn't say basket, but it's like a whole different container of water that's being pumped into the tank and flowing, and that's your filtration, and you can add so much. I've seen people have like over 100+ gallon tanks, and they have like a 55 gallon tank sump on the bottom, and that's 55 gallons of extra water. So if they have a 150, that's 205 gallons tank. And your fish are going to, you could overstock it, and your fish are going to be so much happier with the water quality. I wouldn't really suggest this other method in filtration for beginners or somebody that's going on a budget, but you can go Wallstead method or no filter. You definitely do have to do a lot more research, but essentially, if you want the gist of it, you need like 10 times as many plants. Like, in my opinion, you don't need a super big layer, but you're going to be putting, you can put actual compost or anything that doesn't have like the additives in it on the bottom, and then you're going to cap it with sand and pretty much run no filter. And the plants are pretty much going to filter out everything. You just need a really, really fast growing plant, and something that's going to suck out from the water column. So like a lot of people use like floater plants and house plants, but yeah, you can also use that. But I highly suggest researching that a lot more. So after you make your tank and you scape it to the way you like, and honestly, you can take your time with scaping it, because it's gonna make or break how much you like it. Because honestly, this is the second or third iteration of the tank, and I did not like the other ones. It blocked too much, or it wasn't the right angle, and I honestly thought I had a picture in my head the first time, but nope, it did not look the way I wanted it. So this is like the third iteration of my scape, and honestly, take your time, and you can get really, really nitpicky with all the details and make it look really natural and exactly the way you like it. So don't be afraid to take a while, because the next part is going to take even longer. So the next part of the process is going to be cycling your tank, and that could take forever. And honestly, if you don't have any existing tanks to do this method of culturing a cycle beforehand, it's gonna take a while. And honestly, if depending on how many plants, how much hardscape you use, because bacteria, that's gonna help fund the cycle, grows on everything. It grows on the plants, the top, oh, these leaf thingies. I can't say the other word. I'm too tongue tied. But it grows on everything. So the more stuff you have in the tank, not overloading it because the fish need swim space, but it grows on everything, and that can help the cycle as well. But it could take upwards to a week to 8 weeks. It just depends on how cycled you want your tank, and you can get these quick start from these companies, and you can do it within a day, within a few days. But honestly, if it is your first tank, I do suggest waiting a little bit, because what happens if the plants start dying like this? I kind of rushed it, in my opinion. This tank was cycling for 2 weeks. I put the plants in end of week 1, and these plants are not doing the greatest. So I have to re-advise while I have fish in the tank. So I have to kind of, I don't want to say run and gun my plan, but I kind of do. I got to figure out how to cycle out the nasties in the tank. So I do suggest letting your tank cycle for a while and letting the plants, get their breather, get their, not breathing, but like get them settled. Have the plants get settled, and once the plants are settled and the plants are growing and you see new growth, that's when you start adding the fish in my opinion. So the next step is choosing your stocking, and your tank has been cycling a while and you want to stock it finally. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of nothing in the tank. You don't even have to have a light on, so it's been probably complete black because you don't want it taken over with algae. So you've had nothing in this tank for so long, and you can finally stock it. But what do you stock it with? So you can go the route of choosing the native fish that you've wanted to, this ecosystem that you're making, such as like South America, North America, Asia, Africa, anything like that. Or you can do some research. There's lots of YouTube channels where they go through each tank size, 5, 10, 20, 29, 40, 55, 75, and up, of all this tank size. I'll throw their YouTube up. It's Primetime Aquatics. I use them a lot in my beginning days of trying to find out what type of fish that I want to have in my tank. And you can definitely get lots of different opinions. And how I would choose my stocking is create a list. I have my centerpiece fish, which is my German blue rams, and I'm going to be building the tank around them. I do want them to breed, so I don't want the tank overloaded. I don't want a community tank. I do want a community tank, but I don't. I want the German blue rams to breed, so I can't overload it, because a lot of fish are going to be picking off the fry, or even the wigglers or the worms, and it's going to take the parents a very, very long time, if that, to be good parents enough to guard the eggs and guard all of that. So after I chose my centerpiece fish, I chose my schooling fish, because schooling fish help, smaller or bigger fish come out. And, if the smaller, schooling fish are out, that means it's safe, there's no predators. So I chose these neon tetras. There's going to be like 15 of them in there. And to be honest, it's a lot. I am over filtering the tank, so I'm not too worried. But they are part of a breeding project, so that's kind of why I got so many. And I have this. It's a long fin. It was a present from my girlfriend. It's a long fin, red, like bristlenose pleco, and I don't see any like bristles on it, so I believe this is a female. So I gotta get it a male soon, and I'm probably thinking of getting like at least a long fin male. I'm not too sure what color because then the eggs are going to be like 50-50 essentially. But to be honest, I don't plan on breeding these plecos in this tank anytime soon. Not until I move all these fish out and pretty much empty out the tank. I just don't want anything in the tank at all if I'm breeding plecos because they're just going to be a pain to get out, and especially if they're so small. Like this one right here is as big as my thumb, and honestly, it's still going to take like a year for them to grow out to even be sexually mature. Since we're on the topic of plecos, this is going to be my cleanup crew. It's going to be eating up all the algae, all the uneaten food, all of that stuff, and all the biofilm around the tank. That's going to help clean it up a little bit so I don't have to do it. You can also add snails. You can add shrimp, or also a really good one. Just make sure that your fish that you're choosing are going to be shrimp compatible. One fish that I'm really considering getting in this tank are going to be Cory catfish. I just love them so much. They sift through the sand, so it cleans up the sand a lot as as algae can form on it because all the uneaten food. So the Corys, they sift through the sand and they move up the sand, and there's not going to be algae on it, and they don't really eat like algae stuff like plecos and all that. So you kind of still have to get like snails or something as a cleanup crew with Corys. So after you've chosen your stocking, I would highly advise going to your local fish store. I love supporting local businesses, as I got this pleco from Infinite Aquariums. No, not Infinite, but that's another place I go to. I love Infinite. It was Clearwater Aquariums over in San Jose, and they have really amazing tanks and really good quality fish. This pleco, oh my goodness, its stomach was a little small, in my opinion, but that's just because it was housed with other fish, so it wasn't like eating its fill. But in this tank, it is definitely eating its fill, and it has gone really fat, to be honest. If you don't have any local fish stores in your area, you can definitely go box chain stores such as Petco, PetSmart if you have in your area. That's in the US. If you're outside the US, there's other chain stores that you can find. But for those, I would highly suggest not incorporating that water in your tank, as these box stores have a really bad reputation for having terrible water. As if you walk around these stores, you can see all fish dead and they're just left in there, or lots of uneaten food, and it's just really unhealthy. So what I do is I don't temperature acclimate, I drip acclimate. I do a few drips of water a second, do that for a course of like 20-30 minutes, let it sit. I try to like double the water quantity in the container. And then after that, I scoop them out, put the fish in the tank, and they should be fine as they've fully acclimated to the water. You can go longer, but you do run into the risk of oxygenation, filtering. If they ate, they're going to muddy the water that they're in, all that fun stuff. So definitely do your research and find a little sweet spot amount of time. In my opinion, for these budget ones, you don't have this giant budget to go off of. So what I like to do is replace plants that are dying. After your tank has been set up for a while, you see plants are dying, some plants are doing good. You could do trims, replant them in the plants or in the space where the plants have died, or even get new ones. Get creative. Look online. There's different house plants. I'm going to be getting a peace lily and putting it in the tank. They flower too, so it's going to be a super cool thing to have in the tank. So that pretty much does it for making an ecosystem tank, but I'm going to go over some tips and tricks. If you don't have a painted background like I do, I do have a wood wall, or like a brown wall, so it doesn't look super bad, especially with this brownish water. But what I'm going to be doing is allowing the algae to grow on every single panel of glass of this tank except the viewing panel, so except this one right here. And what that does is provide like more grazing space for fry, fish, and all that, but it just looks way more natural. And in my opinion, it just kind of makes the tank a lot better. You can definitely go for the painted background, but in my opinion, the algae wall just makes it so much better. In my opinion, you can do lots of different ecosystems because there's lots of different bodies of water that house fish. Like this one is from a river that in the summer becomes a swamp and the temperatures shoot like 95. So you can definitely do different ones, as I have done in the past, like an aquaponics setup where I'm growing plants like veggie, fruit and veggie plants out the top, and these roots are covering the tank, and they provide such an amazing environment in terms of cover, in terms of just hiding spaces for these fish, and they love it. So you could definitely get creative with the type of ecosystem that you're going to be running, and I highly suggest being creative and trying something new. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I am running a heater. It is a 200 watt. I do want this tank a little bit warmer for this German blue ram, but you can also go no heater, as there's plenty of fish that require no heater. And you can also, depending on the area that you live in, you could kind of start to have these more colder traits in live bearers, such as like guppies and endlers. I'm slowly turning the temperature down on some of the fry right here, slowly turning the temperature down so they're going to be more resilient to cold. And as they start to produce more and more fry, the fry are going to be more resilient, and that gene and that trait of resilience to cold, of more, I want to say 60 degrees to 50, they're going to be more resilient. And it's just something that you have to breed, and it's just going to take a while. But you can do like a minnows. Those are a really good one. Danios are a really cool schooling fish that you can use that require no heater. You just kind of have to play around with your stocking. Another tip, if you want your fish to breed, I would highly suggest using moss or any other really big spready plant, or use a lot of coverage, as the fry need places to hide away from the bigger fish. And especially like, let's say these neon tetras spawn, and the fry, this German blue ram or even these endlers can go pick them off. These neons aren't the biggest, so the fry aren't going to even be the biggest at all either. So having lots of cover is gonna you're gonna see a lot more fish start to pop up. Another tip that I like to use is the water. So what I do is, instead of filling up the water day of and refilling the tank, what I do is I have this bin full of dechlorinated water. I put some Stability, which is the bacteria, and Prime in here, and I'm just gonna let this sit for 24 to 48 hours, and that's gonna take all the, not all, but most of the heavy metals and all the nasties out of the water. So when you put them in the tank, it's not going to be super harsh on the fish, and you can just drain out the water, pour the water in. And what I use these old tank water for, I either put it in my pond or I give it to the plants outside. So that pretty much does it for this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment them down below. And if you have, any advice on how to create like an ecosystem tank, or anything that you want to put your advice on, please feel free. I want to share this type of information to other people, and especially beginner hobbyists. And I want to have this hobby grow. This is a super cool hobby, and I want people to have a slice of nature in their home. So please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and have a good one.